Hello. Today I'm going to teach you a little bit about face painting. My name's Delia Webb and I work with Funny Faces Face Painting, and I was hoping to be with you all for Galawan and Maisie Day to do some amazing Celtic face painting and arm painting, and then some Celtic bracelets as well, some braiding. But as you can see, we're not in Penley Park, so we're going to do some online sessions instead. So, first, information about face painting. This is really important, especially when we're looking at trying to make sure there's no transfer of germs and so on. And face painters are used to keeping everything clean, which is why if you have your face done by a professional face painter, you'll see that they have lots of sponges with them, lots of water, they have disinfectant hand gel, and it's to make sure that every person we paint has everything clean for them. So your face painters should be using clean disinfected sponges, a fresh one for every person they paint. They should be using fresh water for every person, and all the brushes and sponges need to be disinfected each time. So I carry lots of these bits of equipment with me to make sure that we can keep people safe. At the moment, of course, we can't have festivals, we can't have parties. It's really sad. I love festivals and parties. But you can still face paint and have fun at home. So let's have a little look at some of the products that we use, because you can't use just any paint on your face and body. You have to use products that are specially made to be used on the human skin. If you use the wrong type of paint, you might be allergic. It might cause a skin reaction, and you might get irritation on your skin. And also, if you've got, say chicken pox or eczema or a skin condition, you really shouldn't be putting any paint and things on your skin anyway, as it might really make that worse. So you have to make sure that your skin is nice and clean, not broken, no scabs, no chicken poxes. And then you find yourself some really good face paints. You can buy them online. You've probably heard of Snazaroo face paints, which are really good, really basic face paints. These are all water based, so they just wash off with soap and water, which again is really good for hygiene. And Snazaroo, you'll probably pay about £3, £4 for one colour, each one colour. They are good, but they're quite basic. If you want slightly better face paints that are still safe to use on children and young adults and adults, Tag, which are an Australian company, are excellent face paints. The colours are really vibrant. It's difficult for you to see. That's a really vivid pink. They do a full range of colours. There's a beautiful turquoise colour, mermaid turquoise, and basic blacks and whites and reds. So I do use Tag for most of my face painting now, although it is handy if you're doing lots of faces at an event to have some Snazaroo as well, because these are slightly cheaper. The Tag paints, you're going to be paying about £5, £6 or £7, depending on the size, because you can get larger sized paints with more paint in them. So you need to think about your budget and what you want to do with it. If it's just for a Halloween party, you're probably okay just using Snazaroo paints. If you're going to be face painting or doing more events, then you might want to invest in the more expensive ones that will last longer. The other thing you need to be aware of is that if you use cheap brushes, the paints won't work so well. So all of the brushes that I use, and we have lots of different sizes, lots of different shapes, a very large flat brush for one stroke painting. That's complicated painting. Ordinary round brushes, and then tiny, small-ended brushes. But these are all proper watercolour painting artists' brushes. The bristles are really soft. They're very gentle on your skin and the paints, which is important. So it's worth investing in a proper paintbrush if you're going to be doing any face or arm painting. They help the paints last longer, and it will help you paint easily on your skin. So you've got yourself your High density sponges as well, if you're going to be doing background colour on a face or arm. You can get these online in packs of 10 or 12, and they're going to set you back about £7 or £8. But again, it's worth investing in the proper sponges because you can disinfect and reuse them again and again. So you've got yourself your paints, you've got yourself your brushes. You'll need containers, small containers for your water, because you'll need lots of fresh water. Even if you're doing it on yourselves, wash it off. If you practice, you'll need to wash it between designs. Cotton buds are really handy. I try and be sustainable, so I try not to use much plastic, or as little single-use plastic as possible. All my sponges I reuse. My cotton buds, if I'm wanting to get rid of smudges, these are really good for getting rid of little smudgy bits that you've done wrong. These are paper stemmed, not plastic stemmed, and you can get these really easily now in the supermarkets. So paper stemmed cotton buds. You might need towels, and you'll certainly, if you're doing it on a table at home, it's a good idea to put a cover where you're painting so that you don't get the paint on the table. So that's a little bit about the equipment and the products. The other thing that you probably need to practice on is painting on paper and painting on skin. Somebody's body is different. Paper's flat, it's usually on a hard surface, so it doesn't give with pressure, whereas skin is really soft and it's a different texture. And sometimes people have hair on their skin, especially on the arms. If you're trying to paint somebody's arm and they've got a really hairy arm, it's very, very difficult. So all of those things make it different to painting on a piece of paper. So you might want to practice, and practicing on yourself is a good way of learning these techniques. Also, if you're painting on a small child, a 2 or 3 year old or a 4-year-old child, they move. And usually your paper that you're painting on doesn't move, whereas a person will move. Even if they're sitting really still in the chair, sometimes they wobble a little bit, they might twitch, sometimes even worse, they sneeze or cough. And you've got to be really aware of all that movement, because if you've got your paintbrush on somebody's skin, especially near the eyes, and they move, there's a danger you might get a paintbrush in their eye. So you've got to be prepared to move away, which is quite often why you'll see face paintings just touching the top of someone's head really lightly with their finger while they're painting with that hand. And it's so they can feel the movement and be able to take the other hand with the paintbrush away. There's lots of different techniques for doing it, so you might want to practice different ways of sort of feeling and being aware that somebody's about to move. It comes with practice. So all of those things. The designs that we were going to do for Galawan and Maisie Day were Celtic designs. Now the Celtic people are fascinating. They lived in the Iron Age, so we're talking 2,000 years ago. And they had some wonderful artwork and some wonderful traditions and some wonderful language. And the Cornish people, their roots in the Celtic traditions are really strong. Also Ireland, Scotland, Brittany, they had really strong Celtic traditions. And a lot of the languages from Wales and Ireland and Scotland and Cornwall and Brittany, there's similarities in the languages because they carried those traditions through their language and their artwork. And you can find out lots online. There's lots of research you can do to find out more about the Celtic people. But we're going to be looking at some of their designs today. In Cornwall, in lots of the buildings and especially churchyards, you'll see crosses in a Celtic design. The Celtic people believed really strongly in how the earth and the humans and the animals were all really important, and they were all connected. And a lot of their designs reflect how important those things were to them. So the seasons and things growing and crops, and how plants and animals and humans, their lives are all linked and intertwined. and also the sun, the moon, the stars, the way that the earth and the seasons turned. Those things were important to them. So a lot of the designs that you see will focus on how these interlinking, almost cords and knots, join together. And that was how they saw everything was connected. The elements, earth, wind, fire, the moon and the stars, the humans and the plants and the animals, everything was connected and interwoven. And these beautiful, intricate designs you can see even today in some of the jewellery that's designed in Cornwall. But certainly if you go around and you explore some of the older buildings and churches, you'll start seeing lots of these interwoven linking designs. Fascinating to look at. Obviously that's really complicated, and that's complicated to paint. So we're not going to be painting these complicated designs today. I'm going to show you how to paint 3 types of Celtic design. So the easiest one that we'll start with today is called a Trinity knot. So there are interlinking cords and you'll see 3 points, and we're going to learn how to paint a Trinity knot. And you might be looking at that and thinking, wow, that looks really complicated, but I'll try and show you a simple way of doing it so that it still looks like the cords are overlapping, and that's the trick, to make it look like the cords are actually overlapping. The second one that we're going to do today will be the triskelion, and you'll see this design a lot in Celtic designs in Cornwall. I've actually got a tattoo of a triskelion on my arm because it's so important to me, and this design in particular represented the past, the present and the future, and how all of those things are linked. So the past in our own lives, the past in the earth's terms, the past lives of our ancestors, and then the present, how we're living now, and the future, all linked together. It's a really important design. It's called a triskelion. And the last design that we're going to do today is a lattice type, a Celtic lattice. And I'm not going to do one quite as complicated as this, because this is something that you can work towards. We're going to do just a single strip of lattice so that you'll be able to then build it up into a more complicated design. So I'm going to move to the other end of the table where I've got my paints and my water set up. The paint we're going to use today is going to be a black paint so that you can see the designs really clearly. The Celtic people actually did face and body painting, and they used a special dye that they made from plants, and the plant in particular they used was woad. And woad is, it's actually part of the cabbage family, and if you get the stems and the leaves from the woad plant, you can get a really good dye, and it's a sort of bluey green, a dark bluey green dye from that plant. And that's what the Celtic people used to paint designs on their faces. So I was going to do at Gowan and Maisie Day traditional colours, the bluey green woad colours for the Celtic designs, but today I'm going to use dark black so that you can see it more clearly on the camera. Okay, so let's move to the other end of the table. Alright, I'm just going to get myself nice and comfy, and then we're going to change the camera angle so that hopefully you'll be able to see my arm. I think that's just about in the right place. So I've got a cloth on the table, I've got some fresh water, I've got a sponge, which although it looks red, it's actually been disinfected, and the red pigment on the sponge is from a previous face painting. There's some of the pigment stays there, but the sponges have been cleaned and disinfected so that they're safe to use again. And I've got a towel ready to dry my arm between designs, because I'm going to do the 3 designs, but I'm going to wash each one off. So the first design that we're going to learn is the Trinity knot. So I'm just going to mix up some black paint so that it's nice and creamy. You don't want the paint too runny and you don't want it too thick. You want and I'm using just a small round-ended brush because I want quite fine lines. If I used a thicker brush, I would get fatter lines. So Trinity Knot has 3 points, and we're going to start with the top point. Mix a little bit more paint, and one line of that point, I want you to bring it down a little bit further than the other, tiny bit further. And then we're going to take the second point, and the trick is to leave just a little gap so that it looks like that cord has gone behind the first line that you drew. If you just paint straight across, you don't get that interlinking. Then we're going to take, as though we're continuing that line, but again not going right up to the line, and take it back to that point. You can tidy them up as you're going along if you're not quite happy with the thickness. And then the final point here is going to join up, but again it's going to go under the loop and stop just short of that line so that it actually looks like they're interlinking. It is complicated, so I'll do that one again. So, a little bit more paint. I'll do it slightly further up my arm. So we're going to start with the top point and bring that line tiny bit lower. Then we're going to think about the point that's coming from over here, and we're going to take it behind there. Again, not touching the lines that you've done because you want to make it look like they're overlinking. From the first point, we're going to continue to that side, and finally we're going to take that point and loop it up to the middle there. So that's your Trinity knot, 3 points, all interlinking. Okay, so now what I need to do, this is the marvellous thing about watercoloured face paints, you can wash them off. You can either use a baby wipe or a wetted sponge. You can practice as many times as you like on your own arm because you know that it's really simple to wash it off. And then we just dry and you're ready to do your next design. And the next design is going to be the triskelion. So that was the 3 twirly loops. 3 is a really important number in Celtic tradition. Again, past, present, future. And then the Christian people actually adopted it in their tradition. If any of you have heard of the Holy Trinity, it became adopted by Christianity after the Iron Age, but it really stemmed from the Celtic tradition. So when you're doing a triskelion, it's really useful to start off with a triangle to give you a bit of a guide as to where the points come from. So we're just going to paint a really simple triangle, and then you sort of got an idea of where your 3 twirly spirals are going to come from. So we're going to start off with the top spiral and we're going to spiral inwards. So you don't need to do it all in one stroke. You can take your paintbrush off, you can tidy it up, but you've done one spiral. Then we're going to go down to the bottom spiral on that side, and you need to be careful that it's going in the same direction as that one. So take it round and take it towards that first spiral. Again, you can tidy it up, twiddle at the end, and finally the third spiral, always going in the same direction as the other 2. So from there and around to there. So you have a triskelion, past, present, future. Really simple. Should we do that one again? Let's do that side, you can see better. So let's start with the triangle. Nice simple triangle, make your lines nice and straight. Then we're going to do the top spiral. Round. Make it as curly as you want. Once you've practiced this, you can actually make your spirals smaller, bigger, longer. You just need to get a practice and a feel for the paintbrush first. So second spiral, again going in the same direction. Round, like that. And then the last spiral, again, same direction, spiraling from there inwards. And then once you get the feel of doing these, you can embellish them. You can make them more complicated by adding, say, an outer circle, an outer shape. So that you've got your triskelion captured in a frame. And if you wanted to, and you get really confident, you can start adding spirals around the frame too. Remember, you can always practice these types of designs on a piece of paper as well to get the confidence in how you handle your brush, and then transfer them onto your skin. Or if you've got a brother or a sister or a mum and a dad who doesn't mind you practicing on them, you could do it on them as well. So I'm going to wash that off. Remember, if you were painting on different people, you would have to use fresh water on each person. It's okay for me to use the same water because I'm just one person, but if you're painting on more than one person, they need fresh water each time and a fresh sponge if you're using a sponge. So the final design that we're going to learn today is the one that's a little bit more complicated because it's a lattice. So we're just going to show you one type of lattice, and again I think I'd advise you to practice this on paper because it is the hardest one to do, and you sort of need to get your head around how the interlinking works. Remember, if you make a mistake, it doesn't really matter because you can actually wash it off and start again. So to do a really simple lattice, start off just doing a set of lines. So we're going to do 1, 2, let's do 4. Okay, so they're all at a slight slope and they're all the same distance apart. We call that parallel, but they're not straight, they're on a slight angle, because what we want to do is to make it look like crossovers, but we also want to make it look like the links are going under and over. So again, we're going to use that technique of just stopping before each line so there's a little gap so it looks like the cord is going under. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to pretend that it's going to go under that cord and touch the top of the next one. And again, this point here, we're going to go under that cord to the top of the next one. This one, we're going to go under. Oh, we haven't got a cord to join to, but that's okay because we're going to end it in a loop to join there. So your end line will be in a loop. And at the top, we haven't got an end line, so I'm going to draw that extra line joining to the top and then join that one in a loop. And can you see how it looks? Because we've left the little gaps, it actually looks like the cords are going under and over. Let's do that one more time before we finish. So we need a series of lines. Let's do those slopey parallel lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's pretend we're going to go under, so we're going to take the point at the top here and we're going to go under that one and join it to the top of the next one. Point there, it's going to go under that line, join to the top of that line. This one is going to go under. We haven't got anywhere to join to, and that's because we're going to end it in that loop. And finally, we need to have a cord that goes under to join to the top there, so that we can make a loop at this end. So 2 Celtic lattices. And once you've got really confident with that, you can actually make a band around an arm or a band around an ankle. These look really effective if they're done as whole bands around the arm. So let's turn the camera back. Let's say hi and goodbye for now. Hope you've enjoyed that session, and if you have, join us for Celtic bracelets and weaving and knot designing for our next session. Okay, bye.